The rain-slicked streets of Chicago gleamed under neon lights, but inside Club Vortex, the world was a blur of heat and sound. Ethan Nguyen's heart pounded as he pushed through the crowd, the bass vibrating in his chest like a second pulse. He wasn't supposed to be here, not tonight, not when his life was already a tightrope walk between ambition and survival. At 27, Ethan was a junior graphic designer at Apex Dynamics, a tech empire ruled by the enigmatic Caleb Warwick. He'd spent 2 years clawing his way up, proving his worth in a cutthroat industry where one mistake could cost everything. But tonight, after a brutal week of deadlines and a fight with his roommate, he needed escape. Club Vortex was his rebellion, a place where he could drown his stress in music and anonymity. He leaned against the bar, nursing a whiskey, when he felt it, a gaze that burned through the chaos. Across the room, Caleb Warwick stood like a king surveying his domain. At 29, the Black CEO was a legend, charismatic, ruthless, and untouchable, with a reputation for turning startups into billion-dollar giants. His tailored blazer hugged his broad shoulders, and his dark eyes locked onto Ethan with an intensity that made the air feel electric. Ethan's breath hitched. He'd seen Caleb in boardrooms, commanding attention with a single word, but this was different. This was raw, unguarded, dangerous. "You look like you're running from something," Caleb said, his voice low and smooth as he appeared beside Ethan, uninvited but not unwelcome. The scent of his cologne, cedar and spice, cut through the haze of liquor and sweat. Ethan smirked, masking the nervous flutter in his stomach. "Maybe I'm just chasing something better." Caleb's lips curved, a predator's smile. "Careful what you chase, Ethan. You might catch it." What followed was a reckless dance of words and glances, each moment pulling them closer until the world beyond the bar ceased to exist. Caleb's hand brushed Ethan's arm, a spark that ignited something primal. They talked about art, ambition, the weight of expectations, until the club's lights dimmed and the crowd thinned. When Caleb offered to drive him home, Ethan knew he should say no. But the whiskey, the music, and Caleb's magnetic pull drowned out reason. The penthouse was a world apart from Ethan's cramped apartment. Floor-to-ceiling windows framed the glittering city below, and Caleb's touch was as commanding as his presence in the boardroom. One reckless night, one moment of surrender. Ethan woke at dawn, tangled in silk sheets, Caleb's arm draped over him. Panic hit first, then regret. He slipped out before Caleb stirred, leaving behind the warmth of the bed and the weight of what they'd done. Days later, Ethan sat in his cubicle, staring at his monitor, the memory of that night burning in his mind. He'd avoided Caleb's calls, ignored the emails marked urgent. He told himself it was a mistake, a lapse in judgment. But his body told a different story. Nausea gripped him every morning, and exhaustion clung to him like a shadow. When a drugstore test confirmed the impossible, Ethan's world tilted. Pregnant. A rare male pregnancy. A biological anomaly that only happened to 1 in a million. And the father? His untouchable, alpha CEO boss. He couldn't tell Caleb. Not when Apex Dynamics was on the verge of a major merger, and Caleb's name was splashed across every business headline. Ethan's career, his future, everything he'd fought for, it all hung in the balance. But secrets have a way of unraveling, and Caleb Warwick wasn't a man who let things slip through his fingers. Late one evening, as Ethan worked alone in the office, the door swung open. Caleb stood there, his expression unreadable but his eyes blazing. "You've been avoiding me," he said, stepping closer, his presence filling the room. "Why?" Ethan's heart raced. He clutched the edge of his desk, the truth clawing at his throat. "I can't do this, Caleb. Not with you. Not now." Caleb's gaze softened, but there was steel beneath it. "You don't get to decide that alone. Not after that night." The air crackled with tension, a mix of fear and longing. Ethan wanted to run, to hide from the storm that was Caleb Warwick. But as Caleb closed the distance between them, his hand gentle but firm on Ethan's shoulder, Ethan knew there was no escaping this. Not the man, not the truth, and not the life growing inside him. The fluorescent lights of Apex Dynamics buzzed faintly as Ethan stood frozen, Caleb's hand still on his shoulder. The office was silent except for the hum of computers and the distant wail of a siren outside. Ethan's pulse thundered, each beat screaming the truth he wasn't ready to face. "I know something's wrong," Caleb said, his voice low but insistent. "You've been dodging me for weeks. Talk to me, Ethan." Ethan pulled away, his back hitting the desk. "It's nothing. Just stress." The lie tasted bitter. He couldn't meet Caleb's eyes, couldn't bear the weight of that piercing gaze. Caleb didn't move, but his presence was a force, inescapable. "Don't lie to me. I know you, Ethan. I saw it that night. The way you let go, the way you trusted me. You don't get to shut me out now." The memory of that night flooded back, Caleb's touch, the heat of his breath, the way the world had felt right for a fleeting moment. Ethan's throat tightened. He wanted to scream, to confess, but fear held him back. What would Caleb do? A man like him, powerful, driven, always in control, wouldn't want this. A child, a scandal, a complication. "I need space," Ethan managed, his voice barely above a whisper. "Please." Caleb's jaw tightened, but he stepped back, giving Ethan room to breathe. "Fine, but this isn't over." He turned and left, the door closing with a soft click that felt like a gunshot in the quiet. Ethan sank into his chair, his hands trembling. He couldn't keep this secret forever. Not when his body was changing, not when Caleb's eyes seemed to see through every defense he built. He needed a plan, a way out. But where could he go? His family in Little Saigon was traditional, proud, and unaware of his queerness. Telling them about a pregnancy would shatter them. And leaving Apex meant abandoning everything he'd worked for. The next week was a blur of sleepless nights and doctor's visits. The OB/GYN, a kind woman named Dr. Patel, confirmed the pregnancy was progressing normally, but her words were a double-edged sword. "You're healthy, Ethan, but stress can complicate things. You need support." Support. The word felt like a mockery. Who could he turn to? His roommate, Jamie, was a friend, but even she didn't know the full story. Meanwhile, Caleb's presence at work became a constant pressure. He didn't push, didn't confront, but Ethan felt him watching, during meetings, in the break room, across the open plan office. It was as if Caleb was waiting, biding his time. And then there was the merger. Apex Dynamics was acquiring a rival firm, and the stakes were astronomical. Ethan's designs were critical to the rebranding campaign, and Caleb relied on him to deliver. The pressure was suffocating, and yet, every time Caleb praised his work in a meeting, Ethan's heart betrayed him with a flicker of warmth. One night, unable to sleep, Ethan found himself at a quiet diner on the edge of the city. The neon sign buzzed, casting a pink glow over the cracked vinyl booths. He was halfway through a cup of decaf when Caleb slid into the seat across from him. Ethan froze, his fork hovering over a plate of untouched fries. "How did you? You're not that hard to find," Caleb said, his tone gentle but firm. "You've been running, Ethan. From me, from whatever this is. I'm done waiting for you to come to me." Ethan's chest ached. The diner's hum faded, and it was just them, two men caught in a moment that could break or bind them. "Caleb, you don't understand. It's bigger than you know." "Then tell me." Caleb leaned forward, his eyes searching Ethan's. "Whatever it is, we face it together." The words cracked something open in Ethan. He wanted to believe them, wanted to trust the man who'd turned his world upside down. But the truth was a weight he wasn't ready to share. Not yet. "I can't," he whispered, standing abruptly. He left the diner, the bell above the door jangling as he fled into the night. But Caleb's words echoed in his mind, a promise and a challenge he couldn't escape. Weeks passed, and Ethan's secret grew heavier, both in his body and his heart. The morning sickness eased, but the fear didn't. Every glance from Caleb felt like a question, every touch, accidental or not, a reminder of the night that had changed everything. Ethan threw himself into his work, hoping to drown out the chaos in his mind. But the merger's deadline loomed, and with it, the pressure to perform. His designs were brilliant. Even Caleb said so, but the strain was taking its toll. One afternoon, in a rare moment of quiet, Ethan sat on the office rooftop, sketching the city skyline to clear his head. The door creaked open, and Caleb appeared, his silhouette sharp against the setting sun. He didn't speak at first, just sat beside Ethan, close enough that their shoulders brushed. "You're killing it with the campaign," Caleb said finally, his voice soft. "But you're killing yourself, too. What's going on, Ethan?" Ethan's pencil stilled. The truth was a tidal wave, ready to crash. He thought of his family, of the shame they'd feel. He thought of Caleb's empire, the headlines that would destroy them both. But sitting there, with the city sprawling below and Caleb's warmth beside him, Ethan felt something shift. "I'm pregnant," he blurted, the words tumbling out before he could stop them. "It's yours." The silence was deafening. Caleb's face was unreadable, his eyes wide with shock. Ethan braced for anger, rejection, anything but the quiet that stretched between them. Then, slowly, Caleb reached for his hand, his grip steady but gentle. "Why didn't you tell me?" Caleb's voice was raw, not with anger, but with something deeper, hurt, maybe, or fear. "I was scared," Ethan admitted, his voice breaking. "You're you, and I'm just me. This could ruin everything. Your career, the merger, my life." Caleb's thumb brushed over Ethan's knuckles, a small gesture that felt like an anchor. "You think I'd let that happen? Ethan, I don't care about the headlines. I care about you." The words hit like a punch. Ethan wanted to believe them, but doubt gnawed at him. "You don't know what this means. My family, they won't understand. And the world, they'll tear us apart." Caleb's jaw tightened, but his eyes were fierce with determination. "Let them try. I've built an empire from nothing. I'm not afraid of a fight. And I'm not letting you go through this alone." For the first time, Ethan let himself hope. But hope was dangerous, and the world wasn't kind to men like them. The merger's final presentation was days away, and rumors were already swirling about Caleb's personal life. A gossip blog had caught wind of their late-night diner meeting, and whispers were spreading in the office. Ethan felt the walls closing in, but Caleb's hand in his was a lifeline he couldn't ignore. The night of the presentation, Ethan stood in the wings of the conference room, his stomach churning, not from the pregnancy, but from the stakes. Caleb was at the podium, commanding the room with his usual fire, but his eyes kept finding Ethan's. When the applause erupted, signaling the merger's success, Caleb pulled Ethan aside, away from the crowd. "We did it," Caleb said, his voice low and warm. "You did it." Ethan shook his head, tears prickling his eyes. "I can't do this alone, Caleb. I'm scared." Caleb cupped Ethan's face, his touch gentle but unyielding. "You're not alone. Not now, not ever." In that moment, Ethan let himself believe it. But the world was watching, and the truth was a spark that could ignite everything they'd built. The fallout came faster than Ethan expected. A tabloid headline screamed, "Apex CEO's secret romance. Pregnant employee shocker." The article was thin on facts, but heavy on speculation, and it spread like wildfire. Ethan's phone buzzed with notifications, texts from Jamie, calls from his parents, emails from colleagues. He turned it off, retreating to his apartment, where the walls felt like they were closing in. "Caleb, true to his word, didn't flinch. He called a press conference, standing tall in front of a sea of cameras, his voice steady as he addressed the rumors. "My personal life is mine," he said, "but I won't let lies hurt the people I care about. Ethan Nguyen is a brilliant designer and a vital part of Apex. That's all you need to know." But the world wasn't satisfied. Ethan's family demanded answers, their voices thick with disappointment when he finally told them the truth. "A child? With a man?" his mother whispered, her words cutting deeper than any headline. Ethan hung up, tears streaming down his face, and wondered if he'd lost them forever. Caleb found him that night, sitting on the same rooftop where Ethan had confessed. The city glittered below, indifferent to their pain. Caleb didn't speak at first, just sat beside him, their shoulders touching. "I'm sorry," Ethan said, his voice hoarse. "I didn't want this, for you, for us." Caleb turned to him, his eyes fierce. "Don't you dare apologize. You're not a scandal, Ethan. You're the best thing that's ever happened to me." Ethan's breath caught. "You don't mean that. You could have anyone, Caleb. Why me?" Caleb took Ethan's hands, his grip firm and warm. "Because you see me, not the CEO, not the headlines, but me. And I see you. All of you. This child, this life, it's ours. I'm not running from it. And I won't let you either." The words broke something in Ethan, a wall he'd built to protect himself. He leaned into Caleb, their foreheads touching, and for the first time, he felt the weight of his fear lift. They were in this together, no matter what the world threw at them. Months later, Ethan stood in a quiet hospital room, cradling a newborn daughter. Her tiny hand curled around his finger, and Ethan's heart swelled with a love he hadn't known was possible. Caleb stood beside him, his eyes soft with wonder as he looked at their child. The world outside was still loud, still judgmental, but in that room, it was just them, a family forged in fire. Caleb's empire grew stronger, and Ethan's designs became the face of Apex's new era. They faced lawsuits, protests, and whispers, but Caleb's power and Ethan's resilience held them steady. Ethan's family came around, slowly, their love for their granddaughter outweighing their fears. As they stood together on that same rooftop months later, their daughter asleep in Caleb's arms, Ethan looked out at the city and felt a quiet strength. Caleb's hand found his, their fingers intertwining, a silent vow. They'd face the storm and come out stronger, not just lovers, but partners, parents, warriors. The world would always talk, but Ethan and Caleb had built something unbreakable. Love, power, and a family that defied every odd.